with whomever gets elected.
Many Americans may take our relationship with Canada for granted, but I don't.
I would not build a wall on the Canadian border. I love Canada.
What do you love?
Well, we'll see if the feeling is mutual. There are already some troubling signs that the next U.S. president, whoever that might be, might make life in Ottawa more difficult. Justin Trudeau still won't bite on who he wants to see in the Oval Office, but he admitted this week that his government is trying to figure out how they're going to work with a new administration.
I think any responsible government is looking at what various, consequences could be for Canadians, for the Canadian economy, of various measures or various policy positions that the potential next president of the United States, our largest trading partner, might take. That's simply responsible. But I'm not going to get into answering hypotheticals about what could happen if, what could happen that.
The Prime Minister there wisely leaving the conjecture to us. The Sunday Scrum. With me today, Katie O'Malley of the Ottawa Citizen, John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail. They are in Ottawa today. And Maclean's columnist Martin Patriquin joins us from Montreal. Okay, first things first. I want to get a sense from all of you. What do you make of this election campaign? This is a superpower. We're very familiar with the United States here in Canada, very close. But do you think that this campaign has been hurtful to the United States relationship to the world, making it a mockery of the United States, making it a joke in the world? Katie, let me start with you.
No, I mean, I think it's definitely been riveting audiences. I think it's less that it's made it a joke and more that it's become, for some people, a real concern and kind of the worst case apocalyptic scenario in terms of sort of a political development. One thing that sort of works to, I guess, the United States as a whole's favor is that, unlike a lot of previous campaigns, because of the saturation of social media and how intricately covered every moment has been, we've really gotten to see the divisions. In other words, people outside the U.S. aren't of the, getting the impression that everyone in America thinks Donald Trump is fabulous or everyone thinks Hillary Clinton is the best. They really see those divisions and those debates, and I think that that's actually healthy, and it's something that, frankly, most of us can look at our own countries and say, yeah, we've had similarly hard-fought election campaigns, maybe not to the intensity and the degree of this one, but I don't think we're going to be casting any stones.
Where do you see the comparisons, just out of curiosity?
In general, I'm just trying to think, well, you could even look at our most recent federal election campaign, and you actually did have some pretty significant swings and changes of pace throughout the campaign. I mean, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were at third place. It was considered a race between the New Democrats and the Conservatives, and everything kind of turned around. I mean, the personalities were different, obviously, and there was probably less outright disagreement in terms of the various issues that came up. But we did have things like, hey, the niqab. I mean, that turned out to be a sort of a major factor. Syrian refugees. The same issues did arise. It's just that they worked out kind of differently on the Canadian hustings.
John, do you think this campaign has hurt the reputation of the United States in the world?
Well, look, there are a lot of people around the world who want to do everything they can to hurt the reputation of the United States, including some of its people and some of its closest allies and friends. There is a long and dishonorable Canadian tradition of dissing the United States, of feeling morally superior to the United States. And so you see what is really a catastrophically divisive election campaign. I have to, with respectfully, disagree with Katie. The difference between Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau and the difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton is vast. And then, of course, the real danger was that, and to some extent remains, that Donald Trump would win. If Donald Trump were to win the federal election, yes, it would be a massive breach. It would present a rupture between the United States and its allies. It would threaten the global economy. It would be just disastrous all around. The good news is that Hillary Clinton is quite likely to win and to win convincingly on Tuesday. The so-called blue wall remains intact. The state-by-state polling numbers look good for her. So I mean, I personally don't have a lot of concern that she could lose. In which case, a centrist, cautiously progressive Democratic president named Clinton yet again will be in the White House.
Marty,
and we will just go on.
Marty, what do you think?
Look, I think if the Trump campaign had happened in a vacuum, that is to say that Donald Trump came out of nowhere and did exactly as he's done over the last, how long have we been covering this election for? It feels like 4.5 years. Anyway, regardless of whatever it is. I think that if that was the case, I think, yes, for sure, America would be the laughingstock of the world. That said, these types of movements, these sort of, identity nationalist movements are across the world. Yeah. Britain, Germany, France. These are not. These
Hungary,
are,
Poland. You can go on.
Yeah, you can go on.
Yep.
Exactly. So I think in that sense, this is sort of an outcropping of that. And I think the other interesting thing is that I think two things would have happened in Trump's favor had the unemployment been higher. If it had been, it's at 4.9% now. If it had been 9%, yeah. I think he would have had a much better chance of that. And if he limited his shtick to appealing to those white working class voters that everybody talks about, I think if he'd done that, would have done much better. Hillary Clinton is eminently defeatable. But he's done what he's done. He's a blowhard, and he's managed to. Yes, he's hung on to that vote to the expense of everyone else. But all is to say is that no, I don't. I think what we're seeing here is a perfectly American response that is really big, really nasty. Sort of an outcropping of exactly the same thing that's gone across the world.
Okay, let's talk about the relationship to Canada specifically and Trudeau's relationship and what it's going to look like in either case, Clinton or Trump. And let's begin with trade because that's where we've heard the most bluster. NAFTA and TPP, Clinton wants to renegotiate the TPP. Trump says he'll tear up NAFTA or renegotiate it. If he can't renegotiate it, he'll tear it up. What happens if this turns out to be true? How will this new anti-trade sentiment impact our jobs and businesses in Canada? John, I'll start with you on that.
Oh, it's bad news. It is the true casualty of this election. Again, let's put aside Donald Trump, who wants to completely rip up NAFTA, as well as eliminating the Trans-Pacific Partnership and imposing tariffs on China and generally bringing the world to its knees economically and producing a global recession. That's not likely to happen because he's not likely to win. But Hillary Clinton, in order to avoid defeat, has renounced her support for the Trans-Pacific Partnership, this big 12-nation Pacific agreement that the United States led the charge on, spent the better part of a decade negotiating. Yeah. And now it appears
she was on the ground floor.
She was, and she called it the gold standard of trade deals. And you know why? Because it is the gold standard of trade deals. It's a great trade deal, and it's going to be a tragedy that it is likely not to get ratified. It also means that she's unlikely to proceed with the free trade agreement with the European Union, a la the CETA agreement that Canada negotiated. Mm-hmm. It means that the high water mark of globalization has been reached, at least for now. And the tide is going to go out, and it could take years before momentum resumes to get real trade going.
Marty?
The other interesting thing, the thing that hasn't been talked about very much, Trump talks a lot about ripping up NAFTA, et cetera, et cetera. Clinton herself, in 1997, there was sort of whisperings that she was actually quite against the deal that her husband was responsible for in large part, and came out officially against it in 2007. There is too much noise. There is too much. The reason that Donald Trump is where he's at is because of this anti-trade stuff, and there's too much noise on that for her to ignore it. I think we're going to, at the very least, we're going to see a tweaking of the trade deals that are currently in place. And I certainly think that TPP is going to be on the table, just given the fact that Hillary can't ignore that flank in the years following. Because I'm going to say it, Trump's going to lose. She's going to be the next president, and I think this is what we have in store.
All right, I'm going to do a poll of everybody in just a minute, but I want to skip to another topic, and Katie, I'm going to get you a lead in on this one. Do you think there's going to be any impact on our national border security and immigration if there's a Trump administration?
In the case for Trump administration, absolutely. I mean, one thing that we haven't really talked about, because I guess my two co-panelists are convinced that it's all theoretical and that Donald Trump is not going to win. I got to say, I'm not quite as sure as they are. But he hasn't spoken a whole lot about the Canadian border. But you have to think, given the general sentiment and given the fact that we honestly don't know how much of what he says is just political rhetoric and how much is what he would actually do on his first day or first 100 days in the White House. We really have no idea. So, yeah, I would definitely, if I were, Ralph Goodale, the public safety minister and the guy who's in charge of border security, I would be tasking all of my staffers with coming up with all sorts of different scenarios on how he would approach this. Because, of course, the Canadian-U.S. border has been, we've been working for years to kind of make it less arduous for people who want to do business to cross, while at the same time protecting both countries in terms of security. So yeah, that's absolutely going to be a concern. I would suggest it will be under Hillary Clinton as well, simply because security is a constant thing and it's always being reevaluated, and they look at rebalancing. So it can never be taken for granted.
Okay, I'm just going to poll you once again. Let's put it on the record. Katie, what do you think? Who's going to win on Tuesday?
I'm just torn. I do not know. I am not willing to believe the polls after some things we've seen in recent history. You look at it one day and it seems like Clinton has it. You look at it the next and it's like, oh boy, and we don't know what turnout's going to be like. So I'm so sorry, but I'm going to say I do not know.
John?
Even if she loses Florida and Ohio, as long as Hillary Clinton wins Pennsylvania and Virginia, she's safe. And she's pretty safe in Pennsylvania and Virginia, so I'm not worried.
Marty?
Clinton is to Trump as Barack Obama is to Mitt Romney in 2012. It's going to be, she's going to win pretty decisively.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens on election night. That could be a long night if the polls are any indication in the days that follow.